So, before we get started, I've asked people to sort of do an introduction to their work and to themselves, and an issue or two that they feel passionate about. So I'm going to start with Bao, and I'd ask Bao to read a poem as a sort of convocation for this panel.
Okay. So, the poem first. Or...
Why don't you do the poem first, and then you can go on.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Hello. Hello. I'll talk more, but first of all, thank you so much, David, for bringing us together with these wonderful folks that I respect so much, and also in the room, a lot of people that I respect and have learned from. Thank you for being here. This is a new poem I wrote. It's called Kids, and it actually starts off, he didn't plan this. It starts off with a line from David Mura. And that quote is, "I know there is a greater chance that someone will call my daughter a chink than she has a chance of finding true love." In a dark back corner of me, I didn't want to have kids. How much blood and history can one last name hold? Being alive to my people should feel like a golden net. It doesn't. Others in my family tell me what they did to survive, to come here, who didn't. Others will say, you should be glad to be in America. It's better here for your kind. The opposite of history is erasure. All of you are fresh off the boat and should be grateful we even let you in. Asian Americans are the opposite of history. Go back to where you came from. Erasure is the opposite of survival. A boy on the school bus says you have a flat face, like someone smashed it in with a frying pan. All the kids on the bus laughed except for him. He kept staring at you, a monster from his comic book, could not look away from you, a screen for his projected demons. No one will see past the flatness of our faces. They mistake those full horizons for blankness. We'll mock our tongues without understanding our mouths. Chant chink gook at my family until my family retreats. No one cares where. My daughter, 5 years old, already scared of racists, smiles at every playground. Even the one where a herd of kids chanted chink, chink, chink at her daddy when he was a little boy, as if that was the only song one of us could belong to. What promise is there except those chants? Words that grind cinders into skin never thick enough, until she won't want to be herself at all. Will she be hated as a gook first, or a woman first, or a dyke? Or will there be new words for her, balled all into one, as her hands dig into creased school bus seats to brace against words that have nothing to do with you, and yet are meant only for you? A flock of bullies flitting as they follow you home, fists dropping in the opposite of feathers. Will anyone ever ask if the shadows in the corners have ever been lit to wing, lifted finally, so that in dream she could love without wondering if she deserves it? Can she crack a window and breathe a world that breathes her back? A lung we are, but we keep tarring, smoking these bellows, the life we deserve, but that our kids don't. How much energy will I spend trying to defend her against men not at all like me, and men exactly like me? You can't protect her. She's not a map. She's a globe. She's not the playground. She is the falling and the getting up. Teeter-totter of a daughter. She wears the easiest part of you to see. She wears the worst part of you. She wears your face. And just very quickly, because I got to read a poem, I'm supposed to talk about why I do what I do, and I'll keep it very brief. I was born in Vietnam right before they shelled the airport trying to kill us, and I grew up in the Phillips neighborhood of South Minneapolis. I've pretty much been involved in social justice movements in some capacity since the first Persian Gulf War, when I had 2 brothers in the military sent overseas, and I was a Vietnamese refugee trying to make sense of all that, and growing up in the hood in Minneapolis. I've been involved in some capacity with all 3 Miss Saigon protests against the orderly through the years, also Justice for Phong Le. The last thing I'll say, why I do what I do. Again, I got to read a poem, but the short story that I'll tell you is that I went out to dinner about a year ago with some extended family members, and they were just talking, and suddenly the conversation turned to, in Vietnamese, the horror of coming to this country, like what we went through. And some of us didn't make it, and some of us who are still alive underwent. My family, even though we were almost bombed and killed and separated, were relatively lucky, if you can believe that. And some people who are even alive were not even that lucky and suffered even more than us. And I'm listening to them talk in Vietnamese, and it just occurred to me that any one of these family members who have these amazing stories about survival and life, no one's gonna ask them. We're nondescript, working class Vietnamese American people, no one gives a shit. And they would walk out that door, and any one of them could just not know this about them and call them a ching or a goop. And that thought filled me with the rage that, like, I can barely contain. And I think that's why I do what I do.
Linda.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to those who just came in. My name is Linda Herr. I am a second-generation Hmong American, and I am an artist, activist, and organizer. I identify as queer and feminist. What I do, the things that social justice. Why do I do social justice? I remember back when 2003 I had came out to my parents as gay. I remember thinking back, looking at the ceiling at night, thinking, am I the only Hmong gay girl in the world? And I made a very difficult decision to leave home because I didn't have the support that I needed. I also reached out to LGBT organizations in Minnesota, very white, who then said, sorry, we don't know how to support the Hmongness of you. And so I decided to take my $4,000 loan from Metropolitan State University and make my way to San Francisco. And through there, I struggled a lot around my identities, having identity crisis, losing, not being able to be in community of Hmong people and speaking in Hmong and losing, this language that I feel is the Hmong left of me. And then I, did research, learning about the struggles among people who were still currently struggling and, being killed in the jungles of Laos, right? And through that, knowing just this unravel of knowing why it's important to know why Hmong people are here, why my parents are here, why I'm here, why me being gay, queer, is not accepted, why is it my parents having such a hard time to even talk about not having this language, right, to talk with me. And that, institutions out there not knowing how to support me because I look different and other me even further. And so I do what I do because when I closed the door and had left my family, I said that I'm going to make, a better life for myself. And if not now, when I come back, everything will be better. And that's why I'm committed to social justice activism and really having those hard conversations with my parents, my family, my community that challenges, the gender, sexuality norms, challenging white supremacy, capitalism. And so there's much more work to do, and I want to be part of that work.
when I came to New York many years ago, in 1989, Mayor Dickens was the mayor, the first African-American mayor of New York. He talked a lot about multiculturalism. Everyone was talking about multiculturalism. I was really excited because I thought I would meet artists from different parts of the world. And then I read the fine print, which was sort of not written down, that we could only, people of color, artists of color could only meet each other by a whiteness. That's why I do what I do. That started me off on a journey. I wanted to know how I could meet other artists of color. So I created, when I came to Minnesota, I wanted to just reach out to to meet other artists of color and see, can we dance together? What does it mean to share sweat, space, and rhythm together? And we had really hard conversations. But the question I'm always interested in is, if we can choreograph ourselves together, would we understand better relations of power? Because I've been waiting for 2050 for a really long time. 2050, right? The year when people of color will be the majority in this country. It's now supposed to be 2027, and I'm really excited. But there's one thing I know about power. I grew up in Calcutta during communist regime. I'm proud of that. But there's one thing I know about power. It's one of the most dangerous things ever. And if we haven't figured out our relationships in that time, we will just end up, squabbling with each other over who gets the pieces of the pie, the power pie. And, we'll not have dismantled the whole race structure. So being a majority won't mean a thing. So I'm doing my work because I want to be ready for that time. And I only know how to dance, so I'm going to do that. But I'm going to be really ballsy today, knowing that there's David, Mura, and Balfi here. I'm going to read something I wrote. Please don't judge me. I'm not. Because I also define myself as South Asian, and I'm really not interested in nationalism, so I don't know that I have a passport, and I don't know that, I think ideas of belonging, where my body belongs, is very complicated. I don't know about that. And I think that we met each other many times before. So I want to call up those past meetings. It's called the blasphemy of petals, red, orange, and purple. She would soak a handful of the pesky little seeds carefully so they wouldn't skip away. She would slap them down onto her grinding slab, thick black stone. Swift rolling motions of her wrists, back and forth, her bangles bumping into each other with unrepentant clinks. The soundtrack to my homework boredom. Scooping up the soft white paste in her bowl, she would call, Sunday lunch served with a treat. Poppy seed paste with steaming hot rice, a bit of salt and mustard oil, and a side of fresh green chilies. That texture of creamy sharpness, ground just right by Ma. She measured the weight of her wrists, pressing on the seeds carefully. Lingers in my memory. But like the storm that suddenly whips up a ferocious swaying of trees, threatening breaks, history corrugates remembrance, throwing up shreds of panic that rush to connect dots from faraway places and times. Poppy seed delicacies in Bengali cuisine get tripped up by stories of young widows overdosed with opium, pushed to their own immolation by members of a community caught up in the vagaries of a patriarchy, nervous about young women with sexual appetites. Did that mother gasp when she stuffed the opium into her girl's mouth? I wonder. Did her hands tremble as she remembered making chiniposto, poppy seed paste with snake gourd chunks, a rare treat for her little girl once? Today's bride to be murdered. Poppy seeds, poppy tears. Seeds in cuisine, tears, the latex of poppy seed pods. Poppy seeds, poppy tears, lineages crisscross in the manipulations of capital to intertwine women's stories of love and hate, nurture and kill, work and savoring. in a chokehold around velvety petals of poppy, red, orange, and purple. The poppy seed paste recipes of my youth pulled up from my memory to tinge my tongue with delight turned rancid with unrelenting images of young mothers, babies strapped to their backs, forced into sharecropping long fields, monoculture of Bengal opium in fertile lands once harvesting enough rice and greens to fill the distended bellies of their now starving children. With the records of the British East India Company listing £3,160,000 as revenue earned from the export of opium to China for the 1916-17 trade year. The monopoly of the 1857 Indian Opium Act, double-toothed colonial drug laws looting freely on all sides of due process, always stripping up my memories of the delicacies of poppy seed paste my mother would make. Brandishing my finished homework, I asked Ma, "Give me a little more, no, please?" Her hands go on her hips. "Of course not. I got just that much from the market. It's nutritious but expensive. A little bit does the trick." I licked the edges of my fingers to make sure I'm not wasting any.